I'm Steve Schwartz from Agility Nerd, and with me is the wonderful tech savvy Stephanie Thies. Stephanie, why don't you tell folks about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Stephanie. I've been in agility for a few years, less than Steve. And I've done all the organizations, CPE, AKC, NADEC, USDA, UKI. I predominantly do UKI now. I'm a UKI judge. Run in the Midwest mostly. If you're in the Midwest, that's where you'll find me. But now that I'm traveling, that I'm judging, you might see me a little bit further out.
Great, great. So Stephanie's going to try to keep me honest and correct me where I'm wrong. And let's see if we can get this show started here.
Yeah,
And
if you guys
share.
have questions while Steve's presenting, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat, and if it's a relevant question, we'll ask it out loud. If it's something I can just answer quickly, I'll just answer it in the chat. So feel free to use the chat. We are going to try to keep everyone muted, so that Steve can get through the presentation. And if we have time at the end, we can do more on mic open Q&A. But in the meantime, if you have burning questions that you don't want to maybe forget, feel free just to throw them in the chat, and I will take care of that for you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to focus on dog agility snooker basics. So this isn't going to be a master class on how to do it. I want everyone to just feel comfortable when they see snooker that they'll sign up for it and give it a try. So there's four big areas we're going to cover. We're going to cover the basic concepts so you can know all the lingo, and when you look at a snooker map, you won't be afraid. And then we're going to talk about planning the opening section, which is the part of the course where you decide your path. Then we'll talk about running the full thing, as well as how to handle when it's going right, which is hopefully all the time, or when it doesn't go right. And then at the end, as Stephanie said, we'll do some questions, and I've got a couple courses if we have time we can go through and take a look at those. So here's what Google AI says about snooker. Basically, it's a game where you try to collect points. There's two parts to it, what they call an opening and a closing. In the opening, you get to decide your own path through the obstacles. And in the closing, just like you're used to in standard or jumpers, you run the sequence that the judge tells you to run. The judge will give you the sequence. And the whole idea, just like in other games like Gamblers, you want to get as many points as you can within the allowed time. So that's the big picture of what we're doing here. Why the heck is it called snooker? This never made sense to me. And if you read something like the USDA rule book on rules on snooker, they start talking about the game as though people know what it is. All you need to know about snooker is it's a billiards game, pool game, as we'd say in the US, where there's red balls and colored balls. And the whole point is you take your cue ball and you sink a red ball, and that gives you the ability to sink a colored ball and get points. So you get 1 point for each red ball you sink, and then the colored balls are numbered 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once you sink a red, you're then allowed to sink a color, and then you get the points for that color. So the key thing is reds are 1, the other colors have their own value, and that's all you need to know about snooker, the billiards game. We have reds and colors. So here's an example map from a USDA site, and don't get too bogged down in it right now. But the key thing is, as Google said, there's two parts. There's an opening where you create your own sequence, and then there's a closing where you run the numbered sequence. And the judge will always, either in the briefing or typically on the course map itself, give you all the help you need. So it says here opening, there's 3 reds and other rules about the opening. You could see some obstacles are actually colored red. In the closing, it says obstacles must be taken as numbered. And the only trick to that is you start with number 2, okay? And you'll find out why in a moment. So we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7A, 7B, and then finish. So there's some things that are a little different than your regular course, but I'll tell you about them and hopefully they'll all make sense. So when we talk about this opening section, when you go to come up with your own sequence, This is all you need to know. Just like in the billiards game, you take a red, then you take a color for points, then you take another red and another color for points, and then the third red and a third color for points. So the key things are down in the important section here. Each red can only be used once. Um, you don't have to successfully take them. You just need to try all of them. Of course, you want to successfully take them because you want those points. But and then the last thing is you can use a color any number of times. So if we go back to our little map here, I could take this red, take this 7. I could take this red and come back and take this 7. So I could, as long as I take the reds only once, I can take any color I choose for its points as many times as I like. That's really all the opening is about. Okay, so we're just trying to string together a red, a color, a red, a color, red, a color, and then the opening is done. That's the whole trick to the game. The other thing you need to know is that colors can be combinations or combos, and it makes sense once you realize that's what they are. In that you take them you have to take all the pieces of the combination to get the full points. So in the opening, typically the order or direction you take them, it almost always doesn't matter. You just have to take all the pieces and only take them once. In the closing, you always have to run them as the judge numbered and lettered them. So if we go back to our map here, in the opening, I could go 7B, 7A, or I could go 7B backside, 7A backside. It doesn't matter what order you do them in. And if there's 3 of them, you could do them in 3 crazy orders. Just pick the sequence that is best for you and your dog for the skills that you have.
If it does matter the order, the judge will specify.
Yes, definitely. And hopefully if you folks are starting out in starters or novice beginners, judges are hopefully nice to people and don't add on all sorts of crazy rules. They're going to keep it simple so that you can get your feet wet and have fun. Yeah, and so the other tip on this is always read the map. The judge usually gives you all the answers to the common questions, but if they don't and you have a question, ask. Stephanie, have you ever been mean to someone who asked you about your snooker course?
I have not, but I have been mean to, and I was told to read the rule book. So that also is a very helpful tip sometimes, just to make sure you show up with the rule book kind of already glanced over. But most judges will go ahead and have a nice briefing for you. So if there is questions about what is written on the map, you can ask in the briefing. So I highly recommend you attend the briefing, you listen to the briefing, you participate in the briefing. So that you can get all the advantages of that time when other people might be asking really great questions as well.
Yes, excellent point. So let's talk about combos. This was maybe, I think, the most combos I've seen. This is the course map from the recent UKI 1 TDC Invitational. And if we go through our numbers here, here's 2, 3, and then we have 4A and 4B, 5A and 5B, 6A and 6B, and then 7 has 3 parts, 7A, 7B, and 7C. So if you wanted to get the points for 7, you have to take all 3 of these obstacles and take them without faulting. So this is about as complex as it will ever get. A judge can choose to use any kinds of obstacles they want in there. Typically, they're jumps and tunnels, maybe weaves. They'll typically pick a bidirectional contact, though I have seen teeters occasionally. But the key thing with the combo, just take all the parts. That's all you need to remember on them. So another thing you need to know in the lingo department in the concepts is start and finish obstacles. Not every venue uses them, but UKI almost, I believe, always does. USDAA can have a mix of a start line, as we saw in that other map, and a finish obstacle. And CPE will often use the table as the finish obstacle. So you have to just put your dog onto the table. They don't have to assume any position. But the key thing is, if the judge puts these out here, you've got to take them. Usually you only can take them once. And if you take them early, you'll end your run. So take the start jump, finish with the finish jump, and make sure you go in the correct direction, because nothing is worse than watching someone have a beautiful snooker run and then take the finish jump backwards, because typically you lose all your points. So just treat it like you would the start and finish obstacle or line, like for a regular course. They're not special in snooker, but just pay attention to them. So the key thing in this is, right, we're trying to get points.
For any reason, he get power of attorney.
Which means as long as she's alive, he has access.
Oh, something is going on. So we have points if you're at a local trial and you're trying to earn a title, say, you typically need 37 points to queue. So if we add up all the points in the close, 2 plus 3 plus 4, as you see, it's 27. And if you take 3 reds, that's 3 more points. So you only need 7 points in the opening to get by with a queue. So, a couple of 3 and a couple 2s, and you're there. So that's all you need there. If you're looking to get to win, or you're going to a big event, then you might look at, well, how can I get all the points? And the cool kids, as we like to joke, are always looking at taking 3 7s in the opening for the wonderful 51 point score. And the judge may or may not make that easy for you to do, either in the amount of time they give you, or where they put the reds, or the number of obstacles within the 7. So that's part of the strategy. Is not only do you need to just figure out, can I get enough points to queue for a local trial, but for a big event, you're looking at how can I, if you want to win it, how can I get more points than anyone else using the skills my team has. Oh, and my note over here is CPE doesn't use 37 points. I actually read their rules, and it depends what level you're competing at, how many points you need to get a queue. So that's the point story. Hopefully you want to get all the way through the closing so you get that last 7, and because it kind of sucks to only be up through 6 and then the buzzer goes off, because that brings up time. The judge is going to tell you how long you have to run the course. They may not give you enough time to get 3 7s in the opening and finish the course. The good news, if you're in a smaller jump height or you're in a select performance veterans, you will often get some additional time, so that the big dogs, aren't getting all the points. But once again, you compete in your own jump height, so you're good to go there. But here's a good rule of thumb I love for figuring out how long your plan is going to take. You literally count up all the obstacles that your dog is taking and multiply by 2 seconds. It works for a surprisingly large number of courses until you get to the really big courses, or ones that have weaves in them, where things may vary quite a bit. But if you just count all the obstacles, so if a combo's got 3 points, if a combo's got 3 parts, it's 3 times 2, so it's 6 seconds to take that combo, and you're going to take it 3 times. That eats into your time to do that. But it's a really good way to estimate your time. So there's this guy called the Agility Nerd who came up with the snooker calculator. If you don't want to do that math, and you can go into it, it's at snooker.agilitynerd.com. And it's just a simple thing that most folks can do in your head. But if you get kind of flustered in a trial environment, you could have this on your phone and say, oh, in the opening, I'm doing a 7, and a 2, say, and it's going to take me this long to do them. And here's how much time for each obstacle in the close. And it just adds them up for you and says, oh, if you take 3 7s, it'll take you 51 seconds. You'll get 51 points, and it'll take you 32 seconds. So if that's helpful for folks, just wander over there. That the calculator also has the rules for the 3 big U.S. snooker organizations on that website. So those are all the words that you need to know, all the lingo, opening, closing, reds and colors, and start and finishes. So that's pretty much it. So let's talk about how can we have a plan to go. Let's come up with a plan for the opening where we come up with our own order. So as we talked with our own course. So we talked about, let's read the rules. So you have to attempt 3 reds. Obstacles are bidirectional, so you can take the 3 or the 4 in any direction. Combinations can be taken in any order or direction. So, you can go the backside to the backside, B to A to B. This is a USDAA course, so it has this special rule that the judge is reminding you of. If you drop a bar on the first half, you have to take both obstacles, all the parts of the combo to be able to go on in the course. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's talk about how can you plan the opening. To do that, you kind of have to know what your skills are, right? And there's 2 big skills in agility in general, but they really come into play in snooker. First is connection, and that's really important if you want to try to snooker is kind of the last piece of lingo maybe, and that's moving your dog past an obvious obstacle. In the opening, you may be saying, I want to get 3 sevens, and that involves going far away to grab a red to come back to the 7, and you may have to move past obstacles. And to do that, you need to be able to have your dog stay with you and not just grab an obstacle that is on their path. And that's all about building that connection. The other piece is commitment, of course. If you can send your dog over an obstacle and then move further down your path so that you can call your dog to you, that lets you use that connection and your dog's commitment to get you past those tricky spots on the course. And of course, the more skills you have, the more options you have in the opening. So for today, we're just going to talk, since we're talking about starting out in snooker, I want you to focus on the happy path. We want to really try to find a nice smooth path for your dog through the opening, and don't burn a lot of effort on, oh, what if something goes wrong? What if Fluffy drops this bar or I go off course? Just make your life as simple and as smooth as you possibly can. I think I posted on Facebook a while back that I went 0 for 7 in starter snooker with Meeker a number of years back because I was so worried about what might go wrong. And as soon as I gave up that panic and just treated the course as though my opening as though it was numbered, all of a sudden I started getting cues. So focus on the happy path. That's my advice to you. So let's look at that starter's map again. I think the thing I like to do first is find all the things. So let's start with the start and finish. Here you can see there's an S on this circle. Hopefully you guys can see it. So your dog can start anywhere in this triangle to the bottom left, as long as they're behind this line. And that's the start line. So there's no start obstacle, but there is a finish obstacle down here in the bottom right. So you have to take it. The judge will tell you have to take it going out of the ring typically. So that's important. Let's find all our reds. This judge was nice and colored the jumps red and put the word red on them. But a lot of times what you'll see is they're just in black and white, and it may have a number 1 on them. And that's the same thing as a red. So on this course, there's 3 reds in the red squares I've highlighted. And then the last part is the closing, which, as I mentioned, you start at number 2. So I like to just see, what does the closing path look like? Which way do I want to, 2 here, it says 2 is bidirectional because the circle's in the middle. So I could start on either end, go 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7A, B. And of course, we're going to cross the finish line. Let me get some water here. So for me, I'd like to take 2 starting from the bottom with the hope that when this is built, it gives me a nice line from 3 to 4. If it's built differently, it may be that I want to start on the other end of 2, but I don't think that's the case here. So here's the strategy many people work from, is now that we know how we want to go from 2 to 3, what obstacles, what colored obstacle would I take that would be helpful, the most helpful for me? So here, ending on 4 would not be that helpful to get to 2. But if I took 3 this way, that would be pretty good. Or if I took either of the 7s towards this end of 2, that would give me a pretty good approach to go into the closing. So my first step would be like, oh yeah, what if I can, somehow get from this 7 over to there? So once I figure that out, I kind of then go back, either work completely backwards, or this one I said, well, the judge put the red right on the start line. Maybe that I should start there. So that's one way you can think about it. But let's look at some example solutions to this, and that might help. So if we look at this course, we want to find a simple, smooth line. So we said, well, maybe the judge is trying to help us. So let's start our dog here. So we take red, take the 7, take another red, right? Take the 3, backside of the red, not terrible. Take the 3, and that puts me in a good path to start out 2, and then I go right into my closing there. So that fits the smooth line concept. There's always more lingo in the games. So someone's going to ask you what your plan is, and if you were doing this path, I would tell you I was doing 7-3-3, and you would know by looking at this map, oh, okay, he's going to take 1 7 and 2 3s in the opening. And I'll give you the other lingos for those. But it's basically, everyone knows you're going to take a 1, then a 7, a 1, then a 3, and a 1, then a 3. So it's 7-3-3. So this is I would like this path. If I was looking to qualify in this course, I would likely run a path very much like this one. It's pretty nice for my dog. I can use my start line that I could put my dog in the bottom left here and lead out somewhere over here. So I can set the line for 7 and kind of run down the line, and it would work pretty nicely. But Stephanie really brought out this point of using the start line stay, because only the first red is where you get to use this to your advantage, right? The rest of the course, you're running along, getting to the reds and the colors. So let's look at a different solution. The different solution might be to set your dog up at the top here. Even though the judge put this red on the line, on the start line to help us, it could be if I start up here, I can take a pretty nice lead out and use the top red for this 4-7-7 solution. So it'd be red, take the 4, take the red, and then lines get a little crazy here. But it's 7A, 7B, take the red. It could be the front side instead of the back side, whatever you prefer. And then B, A, and I go into the 2. So that's more points than the previous one. There's really no off courses I need to worry about, right? I don't think my dog will run out and grab the 3s or the 5s or the 6s. I'm pretty far away from the finish jump. So this is a pretty safe course, and it gets me quite a bit more points than our original solution. So I didn't have to snooker past anything. Let's look at a third solution here. This is for the folks who want to get all the points. So we can kind of take and there's more solutions than this, just so don't take this as the gospel of the only way to do it. But if I can lead out to here and get my dog over the red and then get them past the 4 and this other red. I can take them through the 7s, grab the red, come back, get this red, and take the 7 for a third time into the close. So this obviously is a little more complicated to handle. It requires going past obstacles. It's got a longer distance for handling it, but it gets me the maximum points. And for a course that has only jumps on it, depending how much time the judge gave us, is probably possible someone would run 3 7s on this course. Maybe not in starter snooker. People aren't usually trying to go crazy in the starters classes, but someone wanted to try it. It's not a crazy solution. So I hope this gives you an idea of trying to look for how can I get to the 2 from my last color, taking advantage of your start line stay to help you take a red that may be harder to get to otherwise. And then just looking for a smooth line that's easy for you and your dog to take. So I think that's the key aspects here. And maybe the most important question, the tip I have for you is if you show up at a trial and you're doing snooker for one of your first times, just ask someone for help. I would like to think all agility people are nice enough that if someone in starters is coming up to you and saying, help me with snooker, they'd happily sit with you and help you figure it out. If you're ever at a trial and I'm there, I'll be happy to help you. You may not need a whole plan. You may just have some questions, and then people can help you, or we could go up to the judge and ask them. So I'll give you a few of the little things, extra tips that you just have to be aware of. In the examples I showed, we didn't actually use number 2 as one of our colors in the opening, but you totally can. And sometimes it's pretty sneaky and good for you to do, because you just need to turn around and take it again to start the close. But don't forget, if you use 2 as part of your opening, so you take red, then 2, you have to take 2 again, because it's part of the closing. The first time you took it, it was your color for your opening, but you have to take it again to start the close. So that's the only thing you have to remember. If you end on the 2 in the opening, don't forget to take it again to start the closing. The other thing you might think about is if you're in UKI, is if 7 is a combo, you only need to have started it when the horn goes off, when you run out of time. If you complete the 7 without a fault and go over the finish line, you'll get all 7 points, even though the horn went off. That's not the case in CPE or USDAA. You would have had to have completed the 7 before the time went off to get the points. So that's just a UKI thing. And my little tip in the bottom here is if you're really getting fancy and you go to a big event, you can watch other people and steal their plans. It means it's tricky because you may not have walked it. Well, it's likely you didn't walk it, but that's one of the tips. There's an advantage in snooker to running later in the day in that you get to watch other people run. But for starting out, don't even change your plan. Take your plan, run your plan. That's my big advice. So speaking of running, let's talk about running the course. So here's Steve and Snappy getting ready, running Team Snooker. Thank you, Four-Legged Flicks. What does the course look like, right? It's a regular course, but whoa, what's this weird flags out here? This is mostly seen in USDAA, but you can see it other places. They'll put up flags with the reds on it, but usually the red is actually a physical red jump. Unfortunately, one of my favorite places to trial in our area, all their jumps are red, so that makes it a little trickier. But you'll often see here we see a red 1. There's a red 1 in the background. Here's a color 2 and a color 4. And if a club doesn't use fancy flags like this, they'll just use regular cones. So there'll be a bunch of 1 cones out there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if there's combos, you may see a mix and match of colors for those. Let me get some water here. So the number 1 rule in snooker when you're running the course, keep going. Until you hear a whistle from the judge or the timer go off, just keep going. You may think something bad has happened, but unless you hear that whistle go off, you're still golden. So keep going, or until you finish the jump, right? You can stop once you take the finish jump. So the thing I want you all to do is focus on running your plan. I think I mentioned this before, but once I started thinking about my opening as though the judge had walked along and put numbers down just for me, that made the biggest difference in how I ran snooker. I stopped thinking about, oh, what if Meeker drops a bar? What if he turns the wrong way? What if? I was planning on failing. don't plan to fail. It's just a few obstacles, and then you go into this close. So walk your plan, get yourself prepared, and then run your plan. And we'll talk about if it goes wrong. So just to remind everyone, if there's a start jump or a finish jump, set up on the correct side and take them, or a line. You don't want to give away those points. As I said, keep going until you hear a whistle. And if you do hear a whistle or timer in the middle of your run, always take that finish obstacle. If you just run out of the ring, you'll typically get 0 points. But it could be you had a qualifying score that if you just took the finish, you would have kept your points and won. Or you would have qualified, or you could have conceivably have won. You don't know what the folks after you are going to do. Always take the finish. So when it goes wrong, okay, it can go wrong in a number of exciting ways in snooker, but don't worry about it. You're going to make a mistake. The first few times you do snooker, the judge is going to whistle and it's going to be like, what? What happened? But you probably also made mistakes when you started out in standard and jumpers too. So don't beat yourself up about it. You're going to learn from them. If you go to read the rules, there's a lot of nuances of different ways things can fail. But I don't think you need to really be worried about them. I hope after we go through this, if you go back and read the rules, they're typically only a couple pages. They should make a lot more sense, hopefully, if I've done a good job here. Also, when it goes wrong, if you really don't know why, just ask the judge nicely when you go out. You say, oh, what happened? What did I do? And the judge will always tell you what happened. They'll say, oh, you took 2 reds in a row. Or, you took 2 colors in a row. Like, oh, okay, now on. And you tend not to forget those. So you only make these mistakes a few times. So let's talk about the ways it can go wrong. The good news is there's no refusals in the opening. So if you take your dog right up to a jump and they don't take it, it's not a fault. You can just take them around your body or take them to the backside, whatever you want to do to take that obstacle. There's no refusals because there's no defined path in the opening. So that's good news. If your dog drops a red on your course as part of your plan, my advice to you, find a way to get to the next red in your plan. Don't try to do anything heroic that would involve, grabbing a different red that isn't part of your plan and making it up as you go. You have to have pretty good spatial awareness to be able to pull that off. My advice is always go to the very next red in your plan. Find a way to get there. If there's no reds left, the rule in snooker, just go to the close. You don't have to be successful in the opening. You could drop all 3 reds and go right to the close, and you won't have a high score, and you probably won't have a qualifying score, but it's perfectly legit to do. Similarly, if you fault a color, you just go to the next red, at least in UKI. This only matters for combos. Okay, so in our 7A, 7B example we just saw, if my dog successfully took the red, we go to 7A and he drops the bar. In UKI, I can just go right to my next red. In CPE and USDAA, you have to take the other parts of the combo. You'll still get 0 points, but if you don't take them, the judge will whistle you off. So that's one of these little organization differences. UKI, yes, you could complete the rest of them, but there's no benefit to complete the combo. So that's just a little nuance there. But what's the rule in both of these cases? Go to the next red. If there's no red, start the close. Another little nuanced rule, which only really applies to CPE, but I wanted to just bring it out here. If you drop a bar in a color in CPE, it's dead. So you can't get points for it again. And when you come back to it in the closing, you can't get points for it or after it. So you're done. So that's kind of sad trombone, sad panda there. That's not so good. UKI and USDAA, even if the bar is still on the ground, you can go through the uprights, still get the points in the opening or the closing. Just keep treating it like it's there. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's safe, or someone's either pulled it away out of the way, a bar setter. Um, yeah, if you take this start or end jump, start or finish jump during your run, usually your run's over. The judge will typically brief about it if they have some exception where, oh yeah, it's okay for you to take the start while you're running the course. It's pretty unusual. Anything else that's going to happen, you're going to hear a whistle. So you hear the whistle, what do? You go to the finish jump, take it in the correct direction, get your points, and move on. So I've got a tip over here, which is only semi-useful. I've never done this successfully. If your dog drops a bar as part of your opening, you could conceivably put your dog in a sit or a down, as long as you do it nicely. Figure out where to go next, and then go from there. I have seen people do it successfully, but as long as you're not abusive to your dog, I believe it is allowed. So the closing is the easy part of this. I think we all know how to do it because we've all done other kinds of agility. So we just run 2 to 7 in order, taking the combos as the judge indicated, and then take the finish obstacle or cross the finish line. And if as some part of this you hear a whistle, you can just head right to the finish line. Make sure you take that finish obstacle or finish line. So the closing's the easy part. It's just agility like we're used to. So I tried to squeeze everything you need to know about starter snooker onto this page here. So when you want to plan your opening, so you take the start, red color, red color, red color. That's our little mantra, right? We want to find a nice smooth path that ends near obstacle 2 so that we can go whoosh right into the closing. As part of your planning, you want to try to use the start line to your advantage to get you to your first red. And then when you're running, my advice is treat your course like it's numbered. If you drop a red, find a way to go to the next red in your plan. If you drop a color, complete your combo if you have to, and go to your next red. If there's no more reds, head right into obstacle 2 for the close. And at any time you hear a whistle or the horn, just go straight to the finish obstacle or the finish line. This page is, in theory, all you need to know about snooker. I think the expression is, it's easy, but it may not be simple, in that it just takes practice to find good plans and then get good at executing. Because at some point, you probably will have to bypass some jumps as you get better and better, and you want to get more and more points. So my last tip is the most important one, maybe. Always ask for help. Don't be shy. There's a lot of nice people in dog agility, and no one wants to see you fail. So just ask for help if you need help. So, Stephanie, anything I've missed out on or glossed over here that you think we should tackle?
Yeah, you've covered everything. The chat's been busy, which is doing great. Been helping answer questions there, and I think you've covered everything that people were asking. I think that the biggest thing is, all the if-then scenarios are so complicated. I can tell you, even as a judge, like, it's hard to learn all the fault scenarios. If this happens, then this, so just like Steve said, just plan a course, do your best, just keep running. You don't know if it's called. The judge might not know if they're supposed to call it. Maybe it's a new judge. You might get lucky. Just keep running. So it's really important that you just, like I said, come up with a course that's best for your dog. So if your dog's really not good at weave pulls, even if the weaves are 7, try to save them for the end. Think about what's best for your dog at the end of the day, that you and your team, And don't worry so much about the points. Because like as Steve pointed out, if you just do the closing, you don't need to take a ton of points in the opening. You can get a queue with pretty minimal points in the opening if you get to the closing. So set yourself up for success, you and your team, and build your confidence for both of you. And then just start adding it and making it more complicated as you get more snooker cues under your belt. You muted yourself, Steve.
I was trying to be a good Zoomer and not hear my dogs barking in the background.
Oh.
But no, that's excellent advice. I didn't get to see the questions because I was sharing, so I'm sure they were all.
Yeah, there's a couple more still trickling in. So yeah, feel free to keep these in chat. So if there's a combo, it says A and B, they only need to be taken in order in the finish, but not in the opening. Correct. Yes,
Yep.
unless stated by some other rule by the judge, you are correct, Kim. That is how Steve showed it on the map. A, B, taken any order, unless the organization or the judge says otherwise. Just get one of each, and then you can move on to your next red or to your closing. But in the closing, you have to take them like it's a numbered course. So once you start two, you are taking everything like it's just a regular jumping course, standard course, whatever kind of course you want. So it's important to, really understand your handling path for the closing. Don't overlook practice walking the closing because you're planning your opening. But make sure you actually know how you're going to handle the closing before you leave your walkthrough. Don't leave your entire walkthrough spent on planning an opening without actually walking the closing, because then if you don't really know what the true closing is, you might have a handling error that causes a bar or a back jump or something like that that you don't want. So really make sure you know your closing handling choices as well.
Yes, excellent. I thought I saw a question.
And as Steve said, the judge, if you do get whistled, the judge will happily tell you. They'll have a conversation with you as you're walking out. Be respectful of your dog. I usually tell people, hey, go ahead, grab your leash, go grab your cookies, and I'll explain it to you afterwards, especially if it's like something I can remember really easily. We just want to make sure we're being kind to the dogs. And when we're, when as a judge, when I whistle you off, I would rather you take care of your dog, and then I'll explain the rules to you 5 minutes later. Unless you're about to run another dog and you really need to know what you did wrong, because like you're like, no, I need to fix it before I run dog number two. Then that's all you have to, you could just say that as well. But generally I'm like, yeah, it's either, if it's super simple, I would just tell you, hey, your dog took a jump behind your back and you didn't see it, or the dog knocked the ball, or maybe you just didn't see it, or came out of the tunnel the wrong way. They went in the tunnel, but then they didn't finish the tunnel and maybe you didn't see it. Really weird things that sometimes just happen because dogs are dogs and this is dog sports.
Yes, dogs are not robots. That's the number one thing.
So
Okay.
Steve, do you mind quickly explain how snooker compares to gamblers, and maybe that would lead into part 2 of this whole thing.
Well, I mean, gamblers is to me easier than snooker, except that you typically need to be able to send your dog a distance away from you. So there's two kinds of gamblers. There's what's it called? Is it called strategic? There's a distance gamble where you have to have your dog take a predefined path of, I don't know, 3 to 6 obstacles maybe, at a distance of 5 to 20 feet away from you, sometimes in horrible ways with layering when you get into masters. But in starters, it's going to be a jump, a tunnel, maybe a weave, hopefully something not too horrible that you have to work at a distance from your dog. They'll put a line down on the ground. You cannot cross that line, but you send your dog over the line. And it's the same thing. You collect points, and then a buzzer goes off. So there's an opening and a closing. You collect points in the opening. Every obstacle is numbered. You send, the buzzer goes off. You go over to the closing, also called the joker for some odd reason, and you send the dog over the line. You try to get them to take those obstacles in the correct order as specified by the judge. And you go over the finish line and you win. That's gamblers. There's another one where it's just a time gamble, I think, where there is no line on the ground, but you have to do 3, 4 obstacles in typically a very short period of time. So you have to be right at that obstacle when the buzzer goes off to get your time gamble.
Yeah, they're called games. Like the snooker and gamblers are combined in most organizations like USDA and UKI to be called games because both of them have a planning. The handler has the plan part of the course, and the course is dictated partly. So there's sometimes awards called like a strategic game award for the person who scores the highest in both snooker and gamblers. And that's because it's strategy related to those versus your jumping and your agility course, you're all just following the numbers and it's just who's the fastest. You don't really, your strategy might just be how to make yourself and your dog faster, but there's not a strategy in terms of like doing the course. Like there's only one way to do it. You go 1 through 20. Gamblers and snooker, there is strategy to try to get the most number of points and what makes the best sense for your team. So.
Right. Okay, I don't see any other questions. We could, does anyone want to I've got a couple more courses we could take a quick look at. If anyone wants to talk about some more courses, what do you think, Stephanie? You want to do that?
Yeah, we started a few minutes late, so we can maybe do another yes. There's a yes with an exclamation point in the comments.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let me
Yes,
see if
yes.
share my screen again. Okay.
That was like the meat and potatoes. So if you do have to kind of take off, you can. Again, this will be posted. The recording will be posted, and you'll be able to reference it back again if you needed to. But hopefully this encourages you and gets you excited about maybe checking that box in your entry form to try a snooker one of these days.
Right. Yes. So here's 2 courses. It's really, I hope no one's on a phone because these are really going to be tiny to look at. This one on the left I took from Kama Ruschenberg. I think I don't know if it's Kama or Kama. Mm-hmm. She's a judge, and this looks like a UKI course to me, a beginner novice. Mm-hmm. So let's go through our little dance here. Here's our start. Imagine we have to go towards the course. Here's our finish. Where are our reds? So here the reds are black and white, and they just have number 1 by them. And it looks like there's 3 of them. And this is typical for UKI, especially in beginner novice. They only give you 3 reds, which is not always. It's nice if you have 4 reds because then you can choose which 3 you want to use. But here we're kind of stuck. So let's look at the close. So here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6A, 6B, 7A, 7B. Then we go over our finish jump. Okay, that's pretty good. So we want to find an obstacle that'll get us going from 2 to 3, and maybe it's 5, but it's pretty far from the reds. So that doesn't look like a good candidate. But the judges pretty much set us up here that 6 looks like a good obstacle to kind of end on, in my opinion. So I guess I want to end on a 6. And I'm always going to kind of look to see, is there a 7 that is going to be helpful for me? Because I want to get points, right? It is a point collecting thing. So I think just looking at this roughly, I'd probably want to take this bottom red coming out of the start, grab 7A to 7B so that I could shoot out and grab this 1 and go into the 6s. Grab this 1, take the 6 again, and go into the close, or probably turn this way to go into the close. So that'd be a 7-6-6, which it's kind of complicated for a beginner novice, I think, of a path. But I think you could probably take 3 6s.
Yeah, or you could do 6-7-6 to start line straight jump, the one to the right.
Okay.
Straight out to 6.
Grab 6A.
Yep, 6B, hit the red, and then do the tunnel. But I would probably do a pushback on 7A personally, and then 1, and then another 6.
I like that one.
It does. So for me, then part of my analysis is like that puts me pretty close to the finish jump. So I would call that more maybe more a high risk because the dog does take the finish jump on the way to 7B. Your game is over. So sometimes you
Yes.
have to hedge, like the lines versus the risk. So for me, with the dog that I have, that risk is pretty high. Some dogs, that risk is pretty low because when you say tunnel, they're just going to drive to the tunnel, which is why like that's nice that there was a tunnel because at least the tunnel cue might override them taking an off-course jump.
Because you're saying going from A to B to this one, this red,
Yeah.
is almost the dog's going to be on this line, and they're going to be like, "Yes, I will take that jump." Right. So that is a real risk, and you would hear the whistle, and you would have just had a 8-point snooker run. So that's how that happens, though. Yeah. So I think it would be some permutation of sevens and sixes, or you could probably get through. You could come up with a three sixer here.
Yep.
It wasn't horrible. I mean, I'd have to think about it for longer than I am now. But basically, you're looking to find ways that isn't a horrible spaghetti bowl path, a big plate of spaghetti. You want to have a nice smooth line if you possibly can, coming through and wrapping through them for your dog. So, and then you go into the close. If it helps you, the judges said you can, 2 is bidirectional. So if you took it from the backside, if that helped you for some reason, it doesn't. I don't see a way that it would, but that's always nice when the judge does that. So let's take a look at this one for Becky Dean. I found somewhere on the internet from 2010, way back when. This looks like a CPE one, which is why I chose it. The reason I say that is we go through our little routine here. Here's our start line at the bottom, so we can start anywhere along it. But the finish is a table, and that's a CPE only thing, as far as I know. Excuse me. Let's find our reds. So she nicely put R for all to the 4 reds, 3, 4. And let's look at our close, 2, 3, 4, kind of a push to 5. This is definitely an older course. 6A, 6B, 7A, 7B, and take the tire and come back to the table to finish it. Let's read her instructions here. Only 3 of 4 can be attempted. So she gave us 4, but we can only use 3 of them. In the opening, all single obstacles can be completed from any direction, so they're bidirectional. In the opening combinations, 6AB and in any flow. That's not really a sentence, so that looks like a typo.
Yeah, I think it can be, because it's 7A to B, it says can be taken, but must be taken in flow. So that's a common phrase in CPE with combos, meaning you have to go the direction. You can't figure eight it. You can't backside serp it. You have to go A to B or B to A, just straight.
Okay, so in the arc, in this case, like 6A, 6B, or from the 4 side of this tunnel
right
to this side of B, you can't loop around to the back.
Correct. So that's a CPE in flow, means like in the direction of the way it's designed in the course.
Okay, but you can do B to A though, right?
Correct.
I mean,
unless it says you can't go backwards. That's why it says either direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. That makes perfect sense then.
Yeah.
I could definitely see in this case with the tire, you don't want people wrapping the tire,
right,
or pushing to the backside on a tire, or crazy things like that. Okay, so where is 2's out here? So there,
it looks like it's bidirectional.
Yep. So coming off of a 7 wouldn't be terrible, or coming off of a 6 would be terrible. I guess I would be tempted to do like 7, 6, red, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So
yeah, you could do 7A is also 3, so you could use that.
Oh, okay. So
well, so you didn't have to use the tire.
So we could go, if we kept with my plan, red on the left, 7B, 7A, grab this red, wrap through the 6, grab this red up here, and then wrap 2 to 3, and
Yeah.
then get into the close. Oops, trackpad mistake there. So yeah, that's a little more complicated path to
Mhm.
do because we're doing that, but the over and back on 2 isn't super great either. My my strategy wasn't much better.
Yeah, I mean
But
the risk of knocking a bar, right? Because if you knock it the first time, especially because it's a CPE, so if you knock it the first time you take it, your game is actually over.
yes, good point. Good point. So the 7 and 6s work out really nice. You you could come here 7, 6, grab the red and come back through the 6, but then you've got to do a little snookery. You've got to get past the
Mhm.
3, but you could then take 2 and wrap into the close. And some judges, probably in that era as well, would have considered, well, it is snooker. You should have to be able to snooker, to go past things.
Mhm.
And in the early days of snooker, you wouldn't see you would tend to see courses where you actually had to go past things. I don't see that as much nowadays, but like, I haven't been in starters in a little while. So that's the other 2 courses I had. Did anyone have any questions there? I'm
No,
not on this.
chat's gotten pretty quiet.
Okay, they're just all sleeping now
Yes.
because
Hopefully we've given them some food for thought on planning this.
cool. So resources wise, here's where the rules are. My advice would, of course, is to go to snooker.agilitynerd.com because I have links to these on that website, so you don't have to pay attention to these giant URLs to find them. And I think the important thing is I wish you all good luck. I hope you'll join us both on the interwebs and on Facebook at Agility Nerd and Canine Nut, or on our websites of the similarnames.com. And let me go back to here. And thank you all for bearing with us. And thank you very much, Stephanie, for the technical support. You saved the day. It was
Got you.
wonderful.
Got to come through. Got to, use my millennial card on you and save you on the tech stuff.
I was going to set up the movie camera and tape it. Okay, thanks again, everyone, and take care.
Yeah, the recording will be posted, and if you need to share it with a friend or somebody you think could benefit from it, please do.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.